Hey, y'all. Welcome to your show.
Don't be a victim.
I'm Lee Turner Jr. of Tango Firearms Training.
And I'm Buddy Myers of Tall Guns.
Well, welcome back to another wet, rainy day down here. I don't know about you.
No, it's sunshiny and 19 degrees, and there's 11 inches of snow still on the ground, and the streets are melted, but not the cul-de-sacs. God forbid the city uses our tax dollars to do their job, but, what the hell.
No, we got rain. Kind of like the Forrest Gump thing. Big rain, little rain, all kinds of rain.
Well, you selected to be there.
Well,
it's about personal choice. You know me. I always talk about personal choice. You made a choice. I don't want to hear about your whining.
My realtor told me, she said, change your winter coat for a raincoat.
Yeah, well, she didn't tell you you'd get ice storms, did she?
This has been a crazy season, man. We're getting the fallout from them blizzards up north. So
fallout,
a little cold.
Fallout. This is normal, man. let me just set a bit with you, Lee.
Yeah.
Remember, they have found tropical ferns in Antarctica. You just think about that for a while, where you're living at.
As long as they don't find my house up there, I'll be a happy camper.
When the Earth rotates, as it has for many, many millennium, you could actually be living at the new South Pole. Well, you're actually north of the equator. Yeah, I guess you'd be someplace around Cape Horn, maybe. Yeah, that'd probably work.
As long as it ain't out in the Gulf, I'll be all right, I guess.
No, you'll be out there in that Cape. That's an ugly area. Ugly area.
Yep. Well, you guys, we talked about it before the show. We thought we were going to definitely get back to some fundamentals here. And what we're going to kind of go over today is some common shooting mistakes. I was out on the range with some of my team, and man, we was having some pretty common shooting mistakes. So it kind of gave me the brainstorm. This would be a good show topic, because a lot of people, when they get in on the firing line, they just have a hard time. Why am I shooting low? Why am I shooting left? I see what I see, but it's not there. What you're seeing at the end of your on your front sight, is compared to target, but then shot placement, it just doesn't equal out to you all. So we thought we could maybe give you some tips today on how to fix some of these.
A couple of common shooting mistakes that I see is, first of all, know which end of the firearm goes towards the target. That's a big one. The second one is know what to load into the firearm to be able to shoot it.
Exactly.
Real story. At the range where I train security officers, one of our brand new shooters comes in there, and he goes to the back with his, handy gun, showed him a receipt. He wanted to, they allow you to have one free shooting session if you bought a new gun. He goes back there, and everybody's watching him on the security cameras. And, he's, messing with his gun, loading it up, pulling the trigger, and he's looking at it, and he takes the magazine back out, puts the front to slide, and he's shooting a semi-automatic handgun, comes back up, does it again. Well, he does this about 2 or 3 times, sets a gun out, comes out and asks one of the staff there that's at the range, could you help me? And they said, sure. So he goes back there to help this fella. And lo and behold, you got to know about nomenclature is where errors start at first. When he bought this gun from a big box store, he asked the clerk for bullets. Well, they sold him bullets, not metallic cartridges or rounds that fit in the gun. They sold him the subcomponent, the little bullet that comes out the end towards the target. He didn't have a case, he didn't have powder, he didn't have the primers. So be aware, you might get that what you ask for.
And another thing, and this may not apply so well to, let's say you're just going to hang around the 7-10 yard. Let's say you back up to the 25 yard. Now down here on the Marine Corps shooting team, we have to shoot at 25 yards. That's 75 feet. Your ammunition can come into play. So you go out and you go to the store and there's this nice price tag. Oh, this ammunition's, wow, it's $10 cheaper a box. That's what I'm going to run with. It may not perform as well at the 25 yard line as you would at the 7 yard line. So this is just some things to take in consideration. The brand of ammunition that you're going to be putting down range when you're going out buying it, especially at the yardage you'll be shooting.
It's kind of like, if you're paying $1 for recycled oil for your car versus maybe $3 a quart, your engine may blow up someday or it'll seize up or lock up. So, you get what you pay for. You don't have to overpay. For God's sakes, folks, if you're going to go out and practice, don't go out and spend a bunch of money on these self-defense rounds. Full metal jacket, something that says target and range or something like that on it. But, don't spend it on self-defense ammunition. That runs more because of the engineering and the things related to the ammunition. That's the key. That's the first place you start out. It's kind of like with a car. You want to make sure you put gasoline in a gasoline-fired engine. You want to put diesel in the diesel-fired engine. Otherwise, you put the wrong stuff in the wrong engine. Guess what? It doesn't work. And that happens with guns. It doesn't matter if it's a handgun, a rifle, a shotgun, a musket loader. Doesn't matter. Put the wrong stuff in, it doesn't work. Could actually blow up.
Because they do ballistic test these things for a reason. And, again, you buy a cheaper ammunition, it may perform well at that 7-yard line. It may perform okay at the 10-yard line. But now back up to the 25-yard, and you're like, what the hell? I'm doing the exact same thing. Well, you just over doubled your distance, and now it may not be there. Remember, when you're backing up, that big target at 7 yards has just gotten a lot smaller at 25 yards.
Yeah, and like Lee's talking about, he's talking about a handgun. Now, you back up, you get 200, 300 meters away from a target with a rifle.
Yep.
It's going to get completely different. I mean, that thing gets a lot smaller. If you're shooting with iron sights, it's going to be really small. And then if you're shooting with glass, a scope, you got to know the ballistics on the ammunition in regards to the rise and the fall based upon distance, the ballistic science behind, does it lose acceleration? Does it lose carry? Does it have an arc? I mean, it's like a lot of folks that shot the old 308 out of the M14. It was a popular hunting round. Most folks didn't know when you shot it kind of had a high rise to the right before it dropped in towards the target versus something like a 338 Lapua 30-06, a lot flatter ballistics when it shoots just because of the weight, the design of the bullet, and the energy that's behind it.
So what we're trying to do is help you all out with some frustrations. If you're going to think you're going to start shooting those far yards, you got to go out and do your homework. Okay. If you want to stay at the common yards, now you can probably start staying around more of the common ammunition, and they'll perform for you, but they won't perform as well as if you're thinking you're going to be shooting X's all day long.
Lee's going to hold that thought. We're going to go off to a break and be right back. All right. Back to the topic of ammunition.
So again, the further back you shoot, you might want to start looking at a higher quality of ammunition.
Or the higher you shoot. You ever shot high? Think about it. Shoot high. What do you shoot high? Goose, duck, dove. You have to select when you use the shotgun shells, not only, 2 3/4, 3-inch, 3-inch Magnum, which you really don't need unless you are shooting goose, because you're going to have a longer barreled gun and you're shooting high altitude, but also the type of shot that you're shooting. Am I shooting number 7, number 8, number 9? Because you don't want to shoot a shot that's so big like double-aught buck. You don't go hunting dove with that, because otherwise all you're doing is picking up feathers. So
exactly.
you got to know what you need, what you're going to shoot, what distance. If you're going to shoot skeet, shoot trap, competitively, you just got to pick the right stuff that's going to break the bird and fly correct. And the bird being the little clay that you shoot for target shooting.
So, from the 7-yard line, them blazers might be nice, but then you're going to start backing up and maybe shooting to get some buddies for a case of beer or whatever at the 25-yard line. Maybe start looking at some gold matches and spend a little extra money on the ammunition so you don't end up walking away from the firing line butt hurt because what you did at the 7 doesn't match the 25-yard line. But this next common shooting mistake I want to talk about is one of Buddy's favorites. Now, he might go on a rant on you about this one, but trigger control.
I had a horse named Trigger. Boy, you...
I know this is one of your favorite ones we hit.
You don't squeeze, people. You press. You squeeze the teat of a cow to milk it. You press the trigger. Press. You press. You press straight back. You press. You don't squeeze it. Squeeze means the whole hand move. You press. Press, press, press. Keeps the gun on target. Proper position of the finger on the trigger between the tip and the first joint. And you press right back. I'm done. Go ahead, Lee.
I knew that would get him going because that is one of the biggest ones. You want to wrap your whole finger in there. Now, there is kind of a common acronym you can think about is if you're shooting to the left, you don't have enough finger in there. You're shooting to the right, you might have too much in there. It's the way you'll be pulling the trigger instead of pressing the trigger, as Buddy stated. We want to press the trigger.
Think about it. It's a base fundamental of physics, okay? You think about if you have that trigger of the gun and you take a popsicle stick, right? Cut the end of it so it's not round, so it's straight, and then put your finger with the tip of your finger just touching the outside edge furthest away from, let's say you're right-handed, so you're going to push it on the left side of that popsicle stick, and you press down on it. Notice what happens to it. It swings to the right. If you put your finger in way deep and you press on the right side, it will kind of press it off to the right. What's happening here, this is basic physics. You put pressure on one of those edges, it's going to change the direction the gun's pointing. Guess what's happening when you're pressing the trigger? You're changing the direction, and the bullet will travel right where you're pointing it at. Bullets fly straight lines. That's an important thing to remember. They go straight lines. It will only go where you're aiming it at the point of when it ignites and it leaves the barrel.
And remember, when it leaves the barrel, from you, the shooter, and with your firearm in hand, a little is a lot by the time it hits the target. So you could bend off a 16th because you pulled the trigger. So you just maybe threw your sights off maybe a 16th of an inch, but down on target, you're looking at 4 to 6 inches off from where you thought you were at.
Or that you jerk the gun when you do it. You press that trigger because you're trying to choke. You're just pressing that trigger so hard, you're slapping what we call slapping the trigger. And when the trigger comes forward, this is another big problem I see in training armed professionals that aren't competing, they're shooting for life, is they'll take their finger off the trigger when it resets. You don't have to do that. You learn the trigger reset. That means after the gun is fired, the trigger will come back at a certain amount of distance and reset the fire. You don't let it come way out. That's another problem that causes shooters to be off target, up, down, left, right, all around the clock. We're like the one that I was training was an excellent marksman at 20 feet, 200 rounds, 4 hits on target. I said, boy, you're really good. You ought to carry a shotgun because you ain't hitting anything with a handgun.
That's a good one, dude. But now, another one, and most people generally, especially with semi-automatics, the pistol, are low shooters. They're shooting dirt. They're shooting below the target, below the black rings, which could be you're relaxing your wrist too much. That forearm of yours is a backstop for them semi-automatics.
Yeah, so remember, this is basic Isaac Newton. For each action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You know, that semi-automatic is a very sophisticated machine, cams, levers, springs. And when you fire, you have this piece of metal, the bullet, leaving the barrel going one direction. Let's say at 1,000 feet per second. You have gases that are pushing it out. Well, at the same time, the gun starts to move the other direction. It's got to have the resistance of your skeletal system, your muscles, to stop it moving to make it function correctly.
Exactly. And that's what we call the relaxing. So if your forearm, your arm bends, your hand and everything follows the handgun back with the recoil, guess what? You're going to be shooting low because you don't have the stability there to keep it straight. You are that backstop for that lower half of the semi-automatic.
Yeah, that's with the pistol. With the rifle, the same. You got to have that rifle pulled in good and tight against your shoulders when you shoot it. You know, again, they're designed a little bit different on the rifle. They'll cycle and do their own thing without the resistance, but it does need all those components to make it aim and shoot properly, because you think it's bad with a handgun if you press that trigger off. Oh, trust me, with a rifle barrel, it's longer out. It's base geometry. The longer that distance that you're off by the time the bullet leaves the end of it, yeah, at 100 feet, you could be off 2 feet because you're using a longer barrel. It's all, just think of a triangle. You've changed the angles. And it gets worse. It gets worse.
Yeah. It's all about positioning. Where to find to place that rifle into your shoulder to keep it aligned, keeping it on your cheek, aligned with your eye, and keeping it tucked into your shoulder where you're going to be your shooting position in your shoulder. If you start changing it high and low, you're going to start changing the trajectory of the round.
But I will tell you, folks, if you're shooting with a scope and somebody hasn't taught you how to shoot with a scope, please do not put your eye against the scope. You hold it back. It's called eye relief. Otherwise, you get this thing that we call scope eye. You'll have this big round black eye around. And on that, we're going to go away to one of our breaks, and we will be right back here in a few seconds. All right, well, we're back from the break.
And that is a dirty trick. Yeah, that is a dirty trick. I seen a guy let his wife, she set the actual buttstock on top of her shoulder, and her eye was maybe a quarter inch away from the scope.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty dirty of you.
Those are grounds for divorce. It's just like those foolish people that you see that take their 10 to 12-year-old son or daughter out, or their niece or nephew, and they go, "Here, I want you to shoot this 10-gauge shotgun. It belonged to Granddaddy." And that sucker's loaded up with those big 10-gauge rounds, and that little kid's all excited. They hold up that double barrel. It's 3 to 4 inches away from their shoulder, and they fire it, and that thing comes back and hits them, and they fly across the air and land on the ground, and everybody's laughing, just thinking, hey, it's funny what happened to that kid. No, it's not, because you may have just turned them against shooting, scared them.
That's right.
And I sure hope you got a good time out of that, because to be honest, I think you're a bunch of freaking idiots.
Yeah. You just scarred that person.
Yeah,
now they think shooting a 22 is just like shooting a shotgun.
Yeah.
So, you took away something they might have possibly been great at, something they might have enjoyed. So, playing around with that is nothing you should be playing around. I mean, us as firearms instructors, we don't play around when we're on the firing line, especially we're trying to make comfortable. We want you to be comfortable with what is in your hand or what is in your shoulder. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to enjoy what we're trying to teach you here.
Yeah, go ahead, Lee. Keep talking.
But then we're going to switch over to the most common, which is these low shooters. And it's called, you're anticipating the recoil. And let me give you the biggest piece of advice. You're going to do nothing to stop that recoil. The recoil is going to be there. Okay. 22 is very light recoil. But you shoot it out of a 2-inch barrel, you're going to have a little bit more recoil. Okay. Now, heavier the gun, you can lighten up your recoil. But especially in a semi-automatic, your recoil is from the gases of the round, and also the slide is coming back. That's why it's so important for you to be the backstop for the lower half of that semi-automatic. Now, and this is one of the biggest the problems we come across, especially with new shooters. They got their firearm stuck out there. They're getting ready to pull the trigger, and right when they pull the trigger, they say, "Oh crap, here it comes," and they push out. Which when they push out, they push down. I can't tell you how many new shooters I've had on the line. No, I didn't push down. The best way you can do is have somebody stand off to the side, video it, and you will see you put yourself pushing this firearm down.
You'll even see it when I train people that shoot with revolvers. They'll do the same thing. They'll push that gun down because they're and even. If they're shooting a muzzleloader or a black rifle, not a black rifle that idiot Bloomberg called them, or it's a black powder rifle, black powder handguns. You see it with too, even the 1860 revolvers and stuff. And I do a lot with a lot of that type of stuff. But yeah, they'll push it out, expecting some type of level of recoil or things that might occur with that gun. And it's they'll do it. And it doesn't matter what type of handgun it is. It's just like the one that shoots the rifle, and they go to shoot it, and they close their eyes. The only time you ever had to close your eyes was back in the 17 and 1800s. When the flash in the pan, we didn't have primers. We had a pan you put powder in, and when you fired it, you closed your eyes and turned your head so the flash didn't blind you. Or if you were flying Iron Hand and shooting strikes at, SAM sites up in North Vietnam, you had to close your eyes, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah. But again, it's that little subconscious voice in the back of your head that you don't really hear, but he's telling you, oh crap, here it comes. Because when you pull that trigger, you're getting recoil. And again, there's nothing you're going to do to stop that recoil other than using the 5 basic fundamentals of pushing that firearm out, holding it tight in your forearm tight. You don't want to over tighten your grip, but keeping that backstop so that firearm does not come back with the shot. Keep it out there. Your arm should not buckle. Period. It should not buckle.
Yeah, you should have 2 guns on the handgun. You should have your hand on the forend and by the trigger on the rifle pulled up against your shoulder. And, with the shotgun into your shoulder, hand out on the forend, hand back towards whether it's and I don't mean pistol grip like the pistol grip ones you see, but it's, there's a difference between an English stock and an American stock with a pistol grip for shotguns. Back in there and you have it against your body. The big thing is, folks, is we're trying to emphasize here is think about training. Getting somebody to show you how to do it. And you don't have to spend the money on a, high quality, top-ended, NRA certified instructor, even though they are very excellent. And there's 2 of them on the radio or in the podcast right now that you could always reach out to. That ka-ching, that teaches type of stuff. But at least watch some reputable videos. Watch competitors. Talk to friends. Practice in dry fire. Learn how to do it in dry fire. Dry fire means unloaded gun. Make somebody sure that they check the gun's unloaded, and you do it at home. Whether it's with a handgun, a rifle, a shotgun, point it in a safe direction. Know that which is the safe direction in your home, and work on those base fundamentals. That's the key. Base fundamentals of how you do it. You've got to walk before you can run.
Because you see from today's show, we're not trying to give you the general mistakes that are common. Sight alignment, sight picture. We're trying to give you the
only
ones
general
that
mistake
you might
we've
not.
got's one up in the Pentagon named Millie, but that's another. Cha-ching.
I'd like to see it. Cha-ching. That was a good one. I like how that one.
Yeah, that's all right. It'll probably get canceled. That's all right.
Yeah.
I won't be on the Armed Forces radio this week.
Everybody's going to be like, knock, knock. Lee, I got a knock on the door.
Wouldn't be the first time.
But yeah, we're trying to give you what you might not be thinking about on the firing line to help you correct yourself. And another big one is shooting stance.
Yeah, and actually, I'll tell you what, when it comes to the stance, I think that's a great place for us to pick up next week is to get into the stance. We'll talk about the stance, whether it's, handgun, shotgun, rifle, and we can spend some quality time on stance because it's all about this thing we call the platform. And given that, we're at we've got 30, just about 30 seconds left in this week's podcast. So, Lee, if you'd give us a few closing remarks before we close out this evening or today or afternoon or whenever you're listening to this.
We're different times.
Yeah.
We hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Again, we tried to give you what you might not be thinking about to help you correct yourself. And as always, what's your 6? What's your family 6? What's your friend 6, especially now at the times we're in? And as always, as long as you have our Lord and Savior in your life, 6 feet ain't so far down.
And remember what I always tell you. Freedom is not won on the battlefield. It's won in the classroom and the home. Teach your children about freedom and know what they're being taught. And until next week, folks, have a wonderful week.